The first thing I immediately felt was shame, like my body couldn't do this. And I wanted to not tell anybody at work, but my instinct is to cover up wanting to have a baby because it's just ingrained in us that going on maternity is an inconvenience and it costs the company money.
Welcome to Humans of Mews, part of the Future is Human podcast. I'm Ella McCann-Tomlin, and this is where we surface the human stories that often go untold at work. The turning points, the unconventional paths, the things that shape who we are beyond our job titles. These are the intimate conversations with people across Mews about their journeys told on their own terms. Welcome to The Future is Human. Today, we're joined by Ali Mitchell, who's the Chief of Staff to our Chief People Officer at Mews. And she's also a Women's ERG Ambassador, where she's helping shape people strategy, culture, and leadership. Ali has over 15 years of experience across recruitment, agile coaching, and people operations. And she's played a really pivotal role in growing teams, supporting leaders, and building systems that put people first. In this episode, we're focusing on motherhood at work. So we're going to explore how becoming a parent reshapes identity, ambition, and leadership, and also what modern tech-driven workplaces can do to better support working mothers. So hi, Ali. We're thrilled to have you on the show.
Thank you. What a lovely introduction.
Thank you so much for being here. And I know that we work really closely together, and I know a lot about your journey. But for the listener, I guess, you've had a long career in recruitment and in people leadership, and then you became a mother. So could you take us back a little bit to that moment of becoming a parent, and how did it change the way you thought about work and ambition and yourself?
Wait, I knew I always wanted to be a mum, and I feel like it's like you have this yearning feeling to become a mum as well. I don't know if everyone feels like this, but definitely like in my 30s, I've had this like overwhelming urge to be a mother, but I have anxiety, so I'm not good with the unknowns, and I'm not good with doing something that I haven't done before. So obviously becoming a mum, something that I
the ultimate unknown.
Ultimate unknown, and I just kept putting it off year after year, and then I think it was 2023. I decided at the end of 2022, I was like, okay, next year we're gonna try, and it was almost like a New Year's resolution to be like, okay, let's try and have a baby. So it did take some time to get to that moment to be like, yes, okay, I'm ready. I'm gonna try for it.
And you said you put it off for a period of time. Now that you are a mother, has that experience so far shaped how you think about work or how you show up to work? What has shifted for you since then?
Well, so I came back to work part-time. So I work Monday to Thursday. So obviously going from working 5 days a week. And also I used to work, especially after lockdown, working in the evenings as well. So I would never stop. Not because work expected me to work those hours. It's just something that I would do. Like I would just always work lots of hours because I'm a workaholic. And I don't think that passion for work has gone away. I care just as much, and especially being functioning anxious, I have like a fear of failure. So I'm always trying to like be the best I can be. But I guess becoming a mother, it helped me prioritize like a lot better, and also working Monday to Thursday, you can't do everything. It's just physically not possible. And I can't work after hours because when I finish at 5:30, I have to go pick up Robin, then I have to get him to sleep. Sometimes he doesn't fall asleep until like 9-10 p.m. and I have to do the laundry, have to cook dinner. Sometimes I get time to go to the gym, but not all the time. So it just made me really good at like a hyper prioritization and being able to organize my work a lot better, and also boundaries to say no of like what I can do and what I can't do. I use the Eisenhower Matrix to help prioritize my work. And it taught me to be more visible and transparent, to say to people, okay, this is what I can do this week and this is what I can't do, and explain people like my priority order. So becoming a mum definitely helped me with that and to create boundaries at work, because boundaries were definitely blurred before having a baby, I'd say.
And for anyone who isn't familiar, could you just explain a bit about what the Eisenhower Matrix looks like?
So the Eisenhower Matrix is a prioritization like framework. So you have like it's in 4 quadrants. So you have really urgent.
It's like urgent and important on the 2 axes.
If you've got urgent and important in the red on this side, then you've got important but not urgent, which is your green. On the right, not important and urgent, which is blue, and then not important, non-urgent in the bottom right corner. So the ones in the bottom right corner, just like don't even put them in the bin because they're not even worth it. And then the red is what I always do first, and then the blue I try and delegate, and then the green I move over to my red once I've completed the items in my red box. And I'm constantly doing that, and then when I have my one-to-ones like with my manager, I'll go through, hey, this is what I think my priorities are for this week. So that's how.
So you get that outside input on it as well. How do you just on that, because Mews is an environment, as we both know, where a lot of things can feel urgent and important all the time, and often more things than you necessarily can get to feel urgent and important. And I'm sure a lot of people listening will be in similar environments. Do you think how have you managed to kind of be ruthless about that? Because I think that's also something that I struggle with. Like if I go through, and this because you're always telling me to take things off my priority list and my project list, and I have too much, and I'm always saying, yes, I know, but all of these things are urgent and they're all important. So how do you manage that for yourself? And do you have any advice about how to be ruthless about that? And especially now that you're a mum, have you gotten better at being ruthless about that?
No, I am more ruthless, and I definitely rank everything, so that there are things that are always more important than others, and then there's also always opportunities to break stuff down. So if you size it up, if you can like break down actually what needs to happen now and what you can do later, that will always work. But yeah, I mean, the other thing is getting like a second opinion as well. So that person to challenge you, being like, is this business impact? Is this something that needs to happen now? Or is it something that you're doing to distract yourself from doing the other really horrible piece of work that you need to do? Like you'll swallow the frog. But I like working this style because you get that dopamine hit every time you tick something off. So breaking things down into smaller chunks helps it more manageable to get through. But often then I find the stuff that I put in the green, which I think is important but not urgent, the green stuff sometimes just gets forgotten about, so it wasn't actually important, urgent at all. So sometimes
that's a good self. So it's its own filter in a way.
Yeah, and sometimes I look back and I'm like, wow, I never got around to doing it, and it actually didn't matter, kind of thing. So
yeah. And I know we've gone instantly almost into like prioritization and how you manage your time and stuff, but to take a step back, before we started recording and we were having a conversation about this conversation, you talked about your experience of going on maternity leave, and one of the things you said, which really sort of I thought was a very poignant image, was you talked about your work is a house, and it feels on maternity leave like you're locked out of the house and you're peeking in through the window. That sense of, I guess, FOMO, which is such a vivid image that I'm sure people can relate to. Can you talk a little bit about what that felt like before you returned to work, what that experience was like?
Yeah, I mean, I'll give you a bit of context. So my due date was the 11th of November. And 3 weeks before you were actually, you hadn't started, but you were present at this offsite.
Yes.
Yes, I was, so 3 weeks before I was helping facilitate a 3-day offsite in Croydon. And yeah, so I finished on the Thursday, drove back on the Friday, and then on the Friday evening, my waters broke. So I wasn't planning to finish work for another 2 weeks. I hadn't even done a handover, and I was messaging Naomi being I was on Saturday being like, "Oh, you were right. I'm having my baby now." Even then, I was like desperate to try and do some sort of like handover as I was going into labor, which is just this. Like now I look back on it, I was like, what was I doing? I should have just like really just focused um on
Your
like
body.
yeah, my body and like giving birth, and I just had these like weird thoughts like, oh no, don't worry, because like I'll have the baby and then I'll be able to work a little bit and to do that.
Once this bit's done, I'll be,
And then we'd just done the offsite, and the next part was to write the strategy. And so I was going to spend the next week creating the operating model and the strategy for 2024. And so basically just did the offsite and was gone. So that was really difficult because I felt I don't maybe it was guilty. And just to caveat, this is nothing because of like what Mews does or because of the way of working at Mews. It's just how I feel, and I think everyone's experiences is different. And my relationship with work, I was still trying to go to meetings, like in my first like 2 months of like being on maternity, and I remember doing calls, and I look back and I was like, what was I doing? Because my brain was just a mess of like hormones and emotions and not being able to make sense of anything. But yeah, it did feel like and because of the way that I went on maternity, because I didn't have that prep, because it was so instant of which isn't good for me and how I process things, to go from work, waters break, have a baby over the weekend, Monday tell everyone I've got a baby at work. I didn't have that like the downtime to get ready for maternity. I literally went from a pregnant woman to a mum in the space of a weekend. And yeah, I guess it did feel like, yeah, it's like there's a party happening at your house and you can't get in and you have to watch it through the window. That's what it felt like. And I guess different people are different. Like different people approach maternity like different ways. Like some people go on maternity and they just want to switch off for the year and focus on their child. And I think that when you're doing your maternity leave, you have to have that conversation with your manager of like, what kind of maternity do you want? Do you want to be involved? Do you want to have updates, or do you want to just completely? And either's fine. Either is absolutely.
Did you do that, or is that just a learning that that's what you would do if the second time around?
I would if I was to go back in time and I was able to give myself a pep talk, I would tell myself to check in, but just try not to care so much. Like I can't change anything. I can't influence, or I can't be like part of work while I'm caring for a newborn. I think I would have told myself to take a bit more of a step back. And it got easier as the maternity went on. But yeah, I did arrange with Naomi before going on maternity, and I had like monthly check-ins with her, with the Magda on my team, and then who else did I check in with? I had different people check in with me like once a month to like tell me what's happening. But for me at the time, I didn't feel like it was enough. I wanted to be like more involved. But looking back, I think that was just me feeling anxious about. I've never had that much time off work before. Like the most I've ever had off is 2 weeks, and even because I come from a sales background, like when I was working a sales role, I would never take more than a week off because you would lose your pipeline and stuff. So to take that much time off, it just felt really unnatural.
it's quite a gendered experience, I guess, because we're talking about maternity leave here. And for the most part, in heterosexual couples or in scenarios where you have a birthing parent who's a woman, you take up to a year off, 6 months to a year off sometimes. And we've spoken about this before of the fact that, I mean, paternity leave is woeful in a lot of countries, and that's sort of a separate conversation. I think in the UK it's still 2 weeks is the sort of standard paternity leave. But even if you have a good policy with extended paternity leave of a couple of months, it tends to be that women are taking the lion's share of that big bulk of time off, if they're, in those kinds of relationship dynamics. And that also is interesting because we've seen at Mews, right, that like actually if a man is taking paternity leave off, often it's not such a stretch of time that there's even necessarily a replacement while he's gone. It's just like the team can handle it for the next couple of months. Whereas if we're talking about 6 months plus, we are talking about hiring mat cover and all of that kind of stuff. And I'm just wondering about to what extent that also changes that experience of feeling like you're locked out of the room and you're not inside it, because you've got to come back in where somebody has taken on your work for that period of time.
Yeah, and it's scary because I had someone doing part of my job while I was the other thing is I got promoted during my maternity, which I think is really probably quite rare, and like was very grateful for that to happen. But there was someone who was doing my role while I was off, and so you do have these, like, especially as because of all the hormones, you're quite lack of sleep, like you sleep in, like they say, to sleep when the baby sleeps. You don't sleep when the baby sleeps. And you're up all night, and you're exhausted, and you do get these like really negative thoughts of, oh, will they even need me now I'm gone? Will they even notice that I'm here, like I'm not here anymore? Like will I come back and realize they don't need me at all? Like will they make me redundant when I come back? Is this person going to be doing a better job than me? Like all these like completely really horrible, like negative thoughts while you're at home, like looking after your baby. I mean, that's me. I don't think it's everyone, but it is quite a scary time when you should be focusing on your baby. But you're right, because my husband, he had 2 weeks off. And I spent a week in hospital as well, because I also had psychosis after I had Robin, from blood loss and lack of sleep. So I was being monitored by a mental health midwife for a week after I gave birth. So I wasn't allowed to leave the hospital. So then by the time we came back home, I only had a week with my husband before he had to go back to work. So it's the two things. It's like with the short paternity, it's different because different experience, because you don't need paternity cover for that period of time. But it's also hard when the woman does have like 6 months off and the husband only has 2 weeks, because you're getting used to being a mum. You're not sleeping. You always have. It's almost like you're a single parent, but because James had to like move into a separate part of the house because he couldn't be disturbed at night, because he'd be like working all day, and because he also works with the US office. So I was having to do all the nights, all the feeds by myself, and I'd only have a break at the weekends because James is working all the hours. So yeah, there's two negative sides to the paternity, because you do need help. Like you do need help in that, like the first few months when I didn't know, like they should retell you. I really didn't know you had to feed the baby every 4 hours. Like it seems like really obvious, but I gave birth and the midwife came in and was like, set your alarm for every 4 hours, because that's how often you have to feed it. And I was like, what? So
yeah. But there is so much that you don't really get told or talked about or anything. I think that applies to a lot of things to do with women's health and women's bodies. It's a sort of, I think it's improving, it seems now, but there seems to have historically been a culture of not talking about what birth is, like giving birth is like, not talking about what the aftermath can look like, not talking about different experiences for various, complex reasons. But it does mean that a lot of people, I think, seemingly go into it without really knowing some of those key components, as you say.
Yeah, yeah. I didn't know. I didn't when I didn't even really know how to change a nappy. Like I was completely. I had lack of sleep.
Yeah, trying to
like okay, change. I was like, I don't know how to do this. And then someone like, you should be able to change a nappy. So like, yeah, I didn't know. Yeah. So yeah, it was.
You mentioned that when we spoke before, that you came back to work in July, but you didn't get your brain back until I think February or March this year, so 2025. What does that mean? What do you mean by that? Because obviously you'd been at work for quite a while then. What was that experience like of feeling like you weren't quite back?
I don't think I knew. I didn't think I knew I wasn't back until my brain came back. So I think it wasn't until like a reflection point to think, oh gosh, I don't think my brain was working as much as it kind of thing. So I wasn't self-aware at the time of how my brain was feeling. So I came back. I was actually reflecting about this last night. So I came back to work in July, and my plan was to go to MewsCon, which actually
which is our sort of the whole company event, 1,000 people.
1,000 people.
And that was in July last year, right? So that was around that.
Yeah, that was in July last year. I had all my costume ready because it was like 70s theme. So I got all my hippie outfit ready. And actually now I'm thinking about, I think that was crazy that I wanted my first thing to come back to was MewsCon. I think it was absolutely crazy. Again, another thing I didn't know about is when your child first goes to nursery, how sick he will get. So I've just done 1 week at nursery and we all got a sickness bug. I remember doing a voice note to Naomi, my manager, telling her that I was sick and I wasn't able to come to MewsCon. And I remember I was crying in the voice note, which I wouldn't do now, but I felt guilty. I felt like I was letting it down. I felt like if I didn't go, it was going to be like a negative on me, which is all just in my thoughts. Like, and I kept getting sick for like the first, I don't think you remember, I kept getting sickness bug. Like,
I do vaguely remember that, yeah, but probably not as viscerally as you do.
And I don't know if there's a word putting on the podcast, but I got really good at being sick. Like I got really good at
You became a pro.
Yeah, pro was throwing up. Like it didn't even bother me. I'd just be like sick and just like walk off afterwards. But it was quite a shock for me. I didn't realize about the sickness bugs that you get when your child, because it's the first time your child is exposed to being outside your house. And every time that Robin would get ill and I would get ill, I would be like profoundly apologetic. I would feel really guilty. I would be like, oh, the company going to think negatively about me. I felt like I was like letting everything down. I was really, really panicked and really, really emotional. It's fine, and it's fine to be emotional. I was very emotional and put myself down quite a lot. And actually, I remember I spoke to my manager at the time, and I said I feel bad for how sick I'm getting all the time. Like I feel like it looks really bad, and then I got some like really good advice that you should never say sorry for when you're ill. It's just a fact. Like my kid's sick, fact. I'm ill, fact. Like when you say sorry, it makes it almost like it makes it feels like it's your fault that you're sick, and it's not, kind of thing. And actually and it took me months to get to a point to actually be like, to understand like sicknesses happen and it's nothing that I can do about it. And just to be like factual about it. Always, I don't want to say, but it does almost like come across a bit like a victim mentality. I don't know if that's something that I can say, but like that when you understand your boundaries, and you understand and you just say, I'm sick, it kind of.
Well, I suppose it's one of those things, and this, I think this applies to more than just being sick, doesn't it? Of those sort of boundaries with work, and I think people, whoever you're communicating with, whether it's up or down or across, or it's your manager, they sort of take their cues from you in some sense, and so there can be that slightly counterintuitive thing when you communicate, when one communicates, which is like, the more apologetic you are, the almost like worse it is, because it almost invites a sense that I could be annoyed at you for being sick, when actually that's not even on the table. That's not even an option. It's like, of course I'm not mad at you for being sick, but if you're sort of deeply, deeply apologetic about it, it sort of maybe invites that mentality more in an odd sort of way. So, but it's really hard to do, to just be like, matter of fact, I'm not well, or I can't do this, or I can't commit to that because I know actually it's not going to work, or, I don't have the time for it anymore. Those kinds of things are really hard to get into a habit of doing.
Yeah. And I actually, if I reflect on that, I think I've done this. I've always been very apologetic. I've always been sorry when things aren't my fault. I'd say sorry. And so and actually becoming a mom, and being sick so much, to actually then have that advice and that feedback about not saying sorry has actually made me stronger other areas, where I actually just try not to apologize all the time. As soon as you apologize, it's just the wrong vibe. So that really helped me. Yeah. But it's not just the sicknesses. I think also when I went back to work at 9 months, and between like 9 months and to 18 months longer, the sleep regressions, like you're still learning how to be a mum. You're still learning how to put your child to sleep. You're learning how to get into a new routine. I need to exercise, otherwise my anxiety gets really bad. It's trying to how to have my routine going to work with having a baby. You also have this immense guilt of sending your child off every day for someone else to care for them as well. So it's weird, because actually I really enjoy it when Robin sleeps, and I really enjoy when he's at nursery, but I also do feel guilty, and I get a FOMO when I'm not around him. So it's this weird kind of
guilty at work, guilty at home.
Actually, I do enjoy. I really do enjoy like the breaks. But you are sleep deprived, and everything feels 10 times in your head. So getting feedback can feel like way harder. Depending when you get the feedback, it can feel a lot more intense. It's hard to get to that rhythm. Right now, I've got a good thing of like working Monday to Thursday. I know how to prioritize, but for the first 6 months, I had to relearn how to work again, because I've not worked while having a baby, and everything was new, and everything was learning. So your brain is going at you're thinking all the time, thinking, how do I put my child to sleep? How should I be feeding them? Am I giving them enough vegetables? But then also, I've got to do this at work, at this, and work at this at work. And there's so much going on in your head all at once. I've got to do the food shop. I've got to order the cat food for the cats. I've got to do this. Oh, I've got Robin's 1-year check-in. I've got to get him to the dentist for the first time. All are being sleep deprived, and it's just there's so much going on in your head all at once. It almost feels like cotton wool.
You're talking about so much of the sort of the complexity of what's happening for you while you're learning this whole new life-changing experience, whilst you're also trying to, let's say, reprove yourself at work and step back in a way that you like nothing's changed, when that's not really possible because everything has changed. And to what extent, we're obviously talking about this as a very individual experience, but it's, as you're talking about it, sounds quite isolating. And this isn't a commentary on Mews in any way. It's just a commentary on I guess workplaces in general. How do you think there are more things that can be done to manage that transition back and sort of meet people where they are? Because it's such an overhaul of everything you've known, and it sounds like it's quite something to go through almost alone as you're trying to kind of figure out how to come back.
Yeah, I mean, I do think there's an advantage because I have a really good manager, and like I honestly I think I've changed so much in the last year from being open with them and telling them how I feel and them giving me advice, especially because they're a mum themselves, and you know they've gone through similar. But I do think there is opportunity to talk more and to, you know, I don't know, have like, you know, buddies at work who are coming back, or if there's like some sort of network that we could do when people like rejoin afterwards, because I think it would have been really good if if someone who'd come back 6 months before me, like so I could have gone, hey, my kid is vomiting all the time. And they'd be like, oh yeah, that's totally normal. It goes on for about 3 to 6 months and then you're fine, kind of thing. So if there's like one, and you know, someone that you can just talk to just so you know that it's not just you that experiences it. Um yeah, so yeah, I think, and also like I like again, like I've got really good manager, but they'd had the life experience. So maybe there's more that we can do with managers to, it shouldn't just be on the obviously the employee, it should be the you know, the manager as well, and have we got the right support system that managers know, you know, how to reintroduce someone back into the workforce after going on parental leave, and what they'll be feeling, and creating that like open environment that you can say, hey, this is how I'm feeling.
Yeah, because it's emotional support as well as, I guess, practical logistical support simultaneously. And you've also just sort of like dropped in a couple of times, mentioned that you experience anxiety. You've mentioned to me in the past that you sort of call it almost like high functioning anxiety. And sometimes when the balance feels right, you can almost lean into it and it makes you focus. And, you know, but presumably the scales tip at some point, and that can also be really a challenge to manage your responses to all of these experiences. Are you happy to share a little bit about how you sort of live with that side of things?
Yeah, so my anxiety's changed as I've gotten older. So I mean, it hasn't changed. I've always had it, but the way I respond to it has changed. So when I was early in my career, I mean, I was working in sales, which is probably one of the worst environments for anxiety. But it's, you have like the fear of failure, which meant that I worked all the hours, which meant that I burnt out, which meant that that I would be like striving for perfectionist, not because I wanted to be the best, but because I didn't want to get fired. And because you have the constant like what ifs, like what if I don't make the sale? What if I don't hit my, you know, BD, my target of business development this week, all of this. In the past, the anxiety, it would bring out really, really negative like feelings, and I would hit burnout, and I would be really crying a lot. I would I would be physically and mentally exhausted. At the weekends, I would just have to like sleep for hours. But then I've gotten older, I've gotten better at understanding my anxiety. I've done CBT therapy, which has been really helpful. I had more therapy after I had Robin, which was actually quite helpful on maternity leave as well. And now my anxiety is never controlling, and I still have spirals. There will be still times where and it particularly comes like when it's something that I'm doing new for like the first time, and it's like that fear of the unknown, and the what ifs get the better of me, and I start to spiral, and I get very negative and I overthink, but I still work really hard. Like I still work really hard during those times, and sometimes my output is better when I'm having like an anxiety spiral, but it's obviously not very, very healthy. But what I try to do is, when I have those spirals, I recognize it now, and again, I got really good advice from my manager. It's not how you fall; it's how you pick yourself up afterwards. So when I'd have an anxiety spiral, the time after the anxiety spiral would be even worse than being in it, because I would remember everything that I did and every single detail, and I would overthink and analyze like what I'd done during that anxiety spiral, and I'd be really worried and feeling guilty and worrying what people thought about me, that people wouldn't like me anymore. And now I still have the anxiety spirals, and not as often as they were before, but now I try and spin it and try and think, okay, what have I learned from this? And then how can and what happened? And, and what can I do next time? What can I learn from this for the next time that this scenario happens? And I try and try and change things into positive. So instead of thinking, oh, I'm worried, actually it's about changing the language. So being like, oh, actually I have passion. So I have passion for work. So I have passion for, and and trying to make it more like it's excitement rather than it's worry. And so I try and change the negativity to positivity. And the what ifs are unhelpful, but the what ifs can help you plan. So it's like risks and mitigation almost. So you can go, what if this? And be like, okay, well, if this happens, then this is what I'll do.
It's almost it can be a bit of something that you can use to your advantage, not necessarily the anxiety as such, but in a way, certain things give you certain skill sets. I can sort of relate to that based on some of my sort of childhood experiences and things like that. I'm a very hypervigilant person, which means that I can really sense the vibe of the room. I can really tell when people are paying attention, when they're not paying attention, when it's shifted, when it's not shifted. And that can be debilitating. When you're trying to do some public speaking, for instance, it's more natural to be like, I'm bringing this energy and whatever. And I'm more like, that person over there is off. So it can be debilitating, but at the same time, it can be a bit of a skill to know, okay, pivot now because you've lost some people, or because whatever, because those experiences have given me that skill set. And I think there's a similar thing there, isn't it? But it's a difficult thing to balance because you don't want to go heavy into rumination and heavy into these things, because it can paralyze.
One of the I really struggle with at work is performance reviews, because that's the ultimate unknown. Like you do your performance review and then you don't find out what you're getting for like what can be like 6 weeks afterwards. And so you sit in 6 weeks of limbo of like not knowing what grade you're going to get. I don't know if this is just me, if you feel this too. And that period of time really affects me. But actually I've had a chat with my manager and I explained to them this is what happens to me when performance review cycle happens, because as soon as I found out my grade, whatever it is, I just move on from it. I'm closure. But it's it's the waiting and the not knowing that I play different scenarios in my brain. And so I had that conversation with them, and in the next performance review, as soon as they've decided their rating, they're going to tell me straight away, rather than waiting for like that official time of when you discuss your performance review. Just knowing your triggers. So my trigger is like not knowing. So if there's things that I don't know and I know it's going to help me, I'm making that known. So
well, there's a few things at play there in that example, isn't there? Because it's like you having the the rapport and the, I guess, intimacy with your own manager to be able to say that this is what this does to me, and this is there's almost like a kind of baseline psychological safety for you to be able to say that. And then there is the almost situational leadership that she is applying, which is to say, okay, well, I know that this does this to you, and so therefore I'm going to tailor the approach to make sure that you're not sitting in 6 weeks of limbo, whereas actually with someone else, I don't need to do that. They don't care or whatever. And so I actually think that's a really good example of how you can start to navigate some of these things if you have a good relationship with your manager.
It's the same with my my period as well. Like I get really bad PMS the 2 days before my period, and I almost have to like block it out of my calendar, because if I get feedback during that time,
don't talk to me.
Don't talk to me. Is I will overanalyze.
Do not give me feedback. Yeah.
But I will not be in a good place to receive that feedback. Like whatever you tell me,
It's just not going to land.
It's not going to land. I'm going to go on the defensive. Like, and so but knowing that, like, and I think that's really important. Like when you're going to give people feedback, you should always ask them, "Is this a good time?" rather than just going out and saying it, because you could be about to start your period and it's not a good time.
It's not a good time. Yeah. Do you know what? I actually received some feedback before the end of the year, and it was perfectly fair feedback from a person that I like and trust, and something I was already aware of, but like didn't just because it was the end of the year, I was just like, I have 50 things I should be doing, and I'm going to get to 15 of them before the end of the year, kind of thing, as is often the case. And I was just so overwhelmed, running to sprint to get everything done, and like it just. I felt on the verge of tears when they were telling me this perfectly fair thing, because I was like, I cannot take another thing. I can't take it. And that was just the mindset that I was in. I was just like, I can't have somebody tell me, because I'm already thinking about all the things I should have done and haven't done. I was just so in that headspace that I just was like, this might be the thing that breaks me today. And it was fine. It was like, it wasn't like the feedback itself was like, but I think you're totally right. Like it was just the wrong thing at the wrong time on the wrong day. And that can be that if people don't know, she just came into that call being like, I've got, this is on the agenda. I need to tell you about this thing. And especially when you're remote, I think people also don't always know or can't always tell. I know we've spoken a little bit about what organizations can do, but and we've had this conversation also as part of the work that we're doing with the women's ERG, but if you were to design support for people who are going through pregnancy, birth, loss, all of the sort of stages of becoming a parent, is there anything in particular that you would build, and what are the conversations you think need to happen that we're not currently having?
Well, that's why I was going to want make sure we bring up the miscarriage stuff, because I think that's definitely a conversation people don't have.
I'm obviously aware that you have experienced pregnancy loss whilst at Mews, and that's its own different type of absence and experience, and something that is often very invisible at work. Can you tell us a bit about what that navigating that was like?
Yeah, it happened about 3 months ago. And well, first of all, everyone's loss is really different. So I think my experience is very like, people have like miscarriages. Like I've had Robin already, so it's different for me because it was after already having a child. And also I was quite early, so I was 7 weeks. And so I think everyone's experience is very personal to them. I was excited to have a second child. I even did like we found out on the cruise, and I did like the video of like filming my pregnancy test and surprising James, and like got all the got like the excitement, like the video of like, he would be like, what does this mean? I was like, well, it means I'm a second child. And we were really, really happy. And so and I remember it was it was a Friday when it happened, and I'm, just not going into detail, went to the toilet and realized what was happening. I remember running to my husband's office in the garden and being like, we need to call the hospital. Um, and the first thing I immediately felt was like shame that like my body couldn't do this. And I wanted to not tell anybody at work. Like, I was even thinking about actually just not keeping it a secret and not telling anyone I was going through it, because I don't know, I didn't want people to put me in the category of, oh, Ali's trying to have a baby, because we were excited, and we were really excited to have a second, but like, I don't know if we will have a second. Like, I don't know if my body can have a second. I don't know. I don't know if, that would be an opportunity that we have. And like, a couple of people, when I told them like I've had a miscarriage, the first thing they were like, "Oh, are you trying? Are you trying to have a baby?" And that was like, no. And so that, and I just didn't. And even though Mews isn't like this, but my instinct straight away is to cover up wanting to have a baby, kind of thing. And so just because Mews isn't like, I think it's just ingrained in us that like going on maternity is like is an inconvenience, and it costs the company money. And so as soon as a company knows that you want to have another baby, that's negative. Like, that's what my brain was thinking. So I thought, okay, I have to hide this. But then I was in so much pain, and it was really upsetting that on the Monday morning, I told my manager straight away, and I told her I didn't want to tell anyone else. I told one other person at work, but it was also what it takes me a while to process things. And then I think I said to you before, like, I see my life like a library, and these trauma incidences are like books. And once it's happened, it's kind of like a book in the library, so I can open up, read it, but it doesn't almost feel like me. It kind of feels like something that I've read, kind of thing. So now I'm more open. That's why I'm more open about talking about it. But my first instinct was to cover it up. And then as I started learning more about miscarriages, I actually used ChatGPT and Reddit a lot. So ChatGPT was a bit of like a life coach to me, and then I went into a lot of Reddit forums to read about other people's experiences. And it was actually the baby loss week, the week that I had my miscarriage as well. And there was also podcasts, and my friends sent links to me because I didn't know like that 1 in 4 pregnancies like we are miscarriage, and that even that sounds like 1 in 4. That's like, but actually, when I was thinking about the statistics in my friend, I have a WhatsApp group called Girl Gang, and 3 out of 4 of us have had miscarriages. So actually, like, that stat is like even crazier, like when you put it to like the people that I know. So 3 out of 4 of my friends who have all had babies have had a miscarriage as well. And then the more I felt open to talk about it, the more people started telling me about that they had miscarriages, and I just didn't even know. Um, so, and like so I started sharing more because I felt more comfortable about it. And I still got those questions being like, "Oh, are you trying for are you trying for a baby?" And I was like, "No, I don't know what I'm doing right now." But I felt more able to handle the response to when people ask that question. But it just kind of like really opened my eyes to it. And the Reddit forum was really helpful because it helped me kind of trying to see it as like as a positive, like I was saying before. And I know this isn't helpful for everyone, but I try to be positive about my body and be like, I'm proud of my body for getting rid of the non-viable pregnancy. And I think that's pretty easier for me to do because I've already had a baby, and different people have different experiences. But when I kind of went into that mindset, it became easier to process the loss. Although it's still hard to. I still got the video of me telling James on my phone. I haven't been able to delete that. So there's still feelings there, but it just really made me aware of how much people don't talk about it. And because like, yeah, the more I started talking about it, the more I found out more people have had miscarriages, and some people multiple miscarriages, and it's tough.
Yeah. It's often the case with these sort of deeply personal experiences that you don't realize it's a catch-22 in that, like, it can be super isolating going through something on your own, and then opening up about it. Suddenly there's a sort of the floodgates are open and you realize that actually so many other people have sort of experienced that and not been able to talk to anyone about it, and lots of different people have been suffering in silence.
Yeah, even I got my hair done before Christmas, and the girl told me that she was trying, and I said I just had a miscarriage. She said, oh, I've just had two, and then we started talking about it. And she was like, oh, I'm so grateful for you, like talking about it, because I just don't know who I can talk to about it, and I haven't been able to talk to people about it, and so I was like, wow, and that's even just me just talking to like my hairdresser to open up, and I never knew that. So I don't know, hopefully this will make other people be able to talk about it, because it's hard. It's a really hard thing to, because again, like I was trying to work normally while going through it, though I knew there was something going on, but I wasn't at a place where I could share it straight away.
Well, yeah. Understandably, though, right? Like, I'm so grateful that you said, we talked about this in advance, and you said, and you were quite open about the fact that you wanted to talk about it, but it's not common to talk about this kind of thing at work, nor in the context of a professional podcast. So, but we talked about the fact that it potentially could help people who have gone through something similar or who weren't sure how to talk about it. And as you say, once you started telling people, you then could connect with other people who'd been through something similar, who hadn't necessarily had anyone to talk to about it. So I'm really grateful that you chose to, but of course there would have been no pressure to even tell anyone at work necessarily. You mentioned there that you were still trying to work through it, and obviously that's a pattern for you. But if you were to have another child, you also mentioned to me before that you don't think it would be the same kind of level of distressing. There's some stuff that you've learned about it. What would you say has changed, and what would you potentially do now that you didn't do then?
So there's loads that I do different. Like I understand one of the main things is coming back to work. I only had childcare for Monday, Tuesday, Thursdays. I'm like, I couldn't get childcare for Wednesdays. And also my nursery that Robin went to was really bad. We had to move him to a new nursery. And so Wednesdays I was trying to always trying to find family, or me or James were having to take like half days trying to work out. And I think Tasha did a talk in a year on in the women's ERG, which was really helpful, about having your backups and having your backups and your backups, and creating this like support circle. Because I don't my family, they don't really help, and James's family live in Wales, and so I don't have any like kind of babysitting, but now I've got the nursery, I've got a childminder, I've got a babysitter, and I've got another babysitter, so I've got a backup on my backups on my backups, and no matter what happens, I've got somewhere to put Robin when I need to. And that was really difficult going back to work, because I hadn't worked that out. I also understand now that I know that mentally in my head, because I've experienced it. Yeah, someone will do your job, but they're not going to get rid of you. Like you have skills. There are, it's not about the time you're away. It's about what you do when you come back. And it's about, and so I think I would be able to, I'd still want to like do my monthly meets, but I think I would be able to like take a step back and not get so like worried that I'm going to be be replaced. Just because I've gone through it and I've experienced now. I would start maternity earlier. I made a mistake thinking that I could work up until the baby was born. I was exhausted. I would prepare. I ended up having Robin 3 weeks early, so I would start my handover like 6 weeks before and start doing that wind down to finish 3-4 weeks. Baby was born, because honestly, I'd only just had my baby shower. So when I came back, like, the house was just full of crap and boxes, and like it was.
You
So
didn't get a chance to sort of ease into the
no,
experience.
I literally went 24 hours. I went from working to becoming like a mum, and I really recommend like having at least like a week between having the baby, if you can predict that, like but having that time, because I was exhausted and I was huge as well. Like I was really, really.
Well, I met you at that offsite. I met you, I think, a day before or 2 days before you gave birth, and you were extremely pregnant.
I was in pain because like Robin was kicking he moved one of my ribs out, so I was like, I had one of my ribs like got moved out of place because he was like kicking me like the whole time. He was up in my ribs. Yeah, so I make sure I would. Yeah, I recommend anyone to make sure that they take off time before they go on maternity. Have that handover, having like having the conversation with your manager of like what you want your maternity to be like, and how you want to be like involved or not. Having those backups and the backups, like being prepared for the sickness, being prepared for those horrible sickness bugs that you get. And like I've learned so much. Like I've learned, not to apologize. I've learned that, and I've learned how to prioritize. I've learned how to create my boundaries now. I honestly feel better for becoming a mom, because I think it's actually made me. When I first went back, I was a shell of myself. I struggled in meetings. I found it hard to find my identity. But now I feel so much more confident. I've had so many opportunities. Like this year, I've had such a great year. I feel really grateful for everything that's happened. Like, I even got to speak at Unfold, which is one of our big customer like events. Like I couldn't have dreamt of doing that like a year ago. So it was like a hard transition period, but now I feel like I'm getting like more confident and like stronger time. So though I had like having two is like a completely different ball game. I had like having one's like a hobby, and having two is like so maybe I'm disillusioned. But again, I don't know if I will have a second. I don't know what will happen. But if I do have one, I do feel like a lot more prepared for like what will happen, and what will be like coming back to work.
Final question for you, because obviously you've talked just then about what you would do differently, but is there a piece of advice, a warning, or a habit of some kind that you would offer to leaders who are on the other side of this, i.e. they're trying to support people through the journey of parenthood at work? What's that piece that you think needs to happen?
I think there's like I think there's probably more that we can do on education, on like, women, like what it's like for maternity, what it's like being pregnant, what it's like the baby loss. And I don't like I said, there's not one size fits all. There's not like this is the way that you should this is the way that you should handle these situations, or this is how you should work with the woman. It's hard, isn't it? Because there's not a one size fits all approach to all of these things. And I do think knowledge is good. So like understanding about miscarriages, understanding about being pregnant, understanding about the mum brain you get when you come back to work and while you're on like maternity. I think if there was like maybe more understanding there, then different people have different approaches for different people. Like I don't think maybe Naomi would say the same things to me as she would to someone else because I think she knows me. So like she like I don't want sympathy. I just want matter of fact kind of thing because she knows me and she knows what I respond well to. So, but I mean, it all starts with education first for like knowing about these situations. What do you think?
Well, thank you for asking me. I'm not a parent, so I have a very like work-based thought process about this, but as you were talking there, I was thinking, actually, I think a component of this is it's a human experience, like so many other human experiences. And you don't necessarily have to experience that thing to understand that, let's say, as a manager or as a leader, that you need to be curious about what that experience is like for people in order to properly support them through it, which would also apply to bereavement, and all kinds of loss, would also apply to lots of different human experiences which don't necessarily sit within the workplace but affect the people who are in your team or who you're leading with. So I think that was what occurred to me, is it's a human experience that people go through, sometimes alone, or sometimes it's a very long journey for people that involves loss and involves lots of different elements. And then they're coming to work and trying to pretend that it's not going on or that it's not affecting them. And I think as leaders or as people who are, or just as colleagues, there's something there about, to your point about education. That doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to respond in the same way to all people. But if you don't even know what that looks like or what it might be like, or you can't lean into any kind of empathy about what that experience is like, then it's probably going to mean you're not going to approach it in as good of a way as you could do.
No, I agree. I mean, we've come from it from like a women's angle of experience. But yeah, like you said, there are so many other life experiences that happen that people probably don't share but do affect when you're at work.
Yeah. And so hopefully this will be one little thing that people could perhaps listen to as educational and as an insight into one person's experience of what this is like and what we could all sort of do better when it comes to supporting parents at work. So I really appreciate you being so open, and so I knew you would be candid because you are that kind of person, Ali, but I appreciate how candid and vulnerable you've been willing to be, because I think it's going to really help some people who want to know more about this.
Yeah, and like I said, like that this is my experience, and but everyone's experience when it comes to pregnancy, birth, maternity, baby loss is so individual, and so different experience, and it'd be great to. I don't know how to end with that, but like I said, everyone's experience is so different.
Well, thank you. No,
it's a really bad ending.
It's not a bad ending at all. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I have learned a lot from everything you've said, so I really appreciate it. And thank you so much for joining.
Yeah. Thank you for inviting me. My first podcast.
The Future is Human is brought to you by Mews, the cloud-based hospitality platform. If you want to learn more about what we do, visit mews.com. And if you'd like to listen to more conversations like this one, find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you listen. Subscribe so you don't miss future episodes. Thanks for listening.